Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen, to another episode of Nephilim Death Squad. I am David Lee Corbo, a.k.a. The Raven. That is Top Lobster, the father of disinformation. Before we get into today's guest, we just want to remind you guys where you can support us, and that is patreon.com/Nephilim Death Squad. Sign up there, gain early access to episodes, engage in the live chat, and especially now that we've removed these half-an-hour previews from the filthy pores,
watch it live.
The only way you can engage with the live chat is there on Patreon.
And you know what? I guess they get early access because I've kind of hidden it on the page. No, I haven't hit it. To some shirts.
Oh, look, shirts. You can get some shirts. Blap.
Get your blap shirt. Get your funny. I'm not doing this shirt.
That's good. That's good. That's awesome.
We're crushing out.
We got new shirts, guys. Isn't that awesome? Also, early access to tickets to Bohemian Grove. We have lost our venue, which is in typical NDS fashion to lose your venue. But I'm sure we're going to find another one, God willing. We have 5 months until the event. First, a Saturday and Sunday in March. And we're going to do the VIP day here in the Standard Coffee Shop, which we are guamming at you live from right now. I forgot to say that.
Excellent.
Guamming at you live from the Standard
We
Coffee.
have a very good guest today.
I'm excited. Returning guest. I'm surprised she came back. Guys, we'd like to welcome back Jamie Dyer. Jamie, thank you for joining us. Before we get into this conversation, let's talk a little bit about where people can find you and what it is that you focus on.
Okay, you can find me at YouTube under my name, just Jamie Hanshaw, youtube.com. And then I also do a lot of shows with my husband, Jay Dyer, at jaysanalysis.com. So you can find my books there on the shop and all of our movie streams and other conspiracy theories and geopolitics and all kinds of mind control, history, philosophy. It's a potpourri of topics. So something for everybody.
Awesome. And we were actually just talking before the show started that you guys were doing, you did a conference on today's topic at your church, which is, you guys are always kind of bouncing around and doing something live. Every time I end up reaching out to one of you two, you've got some sort of what would that be called? A commitment somewhere or another, and you're going around Florida and you're going everywhere. You guys are really busy these days. It's great to see.
Oh yeah, we are so overwhelmed with appearances and work and shows, and it's really fun, but it's like super busy. So yeah, we like to.
Well, I mean, good problems to have, right?
Oh, exactly. Yeah, really fun.
Exactly. So this topic that we're going to get into today, and I'm not sure where to start on it, but we were discussing a little bit before we started. You had just given this conference on it. It's cults of the first century, which I always think is fascinating because one of my main things is how these cults of antiquity sort of mirror modern day cults. And I'm sure we're going to get into that. But I was looking through these slides here, and I mean, at risk of a really hard start, you want to pull these up real quick? Because I saw a couple of things, and I think we talked about it last time. Here, let's pull this up on the stage, and we'll scroll through this.
Yeah, I have her slides here. Where do you want to start? I feel like we're just jumping right in.
Well, because I saw the what would you call it? The altar at Pergamum, which is like the temple of Zeus or the altar of Zeus,
the seat of Satan.
And then I saw the the gate of Ishtar, the gates of Ishtar, and so those are two fascinating things that we've talked about a lot on this show, and the gates of Ishtar came up very recently. I want to preface this, and I want to get your ideas on it and how this all applies. But I learned recently that there's a set in Hollywood that is still there, and it's the gates of Ishtar. And this, megalithic structure was erected in like 1916, which Hollywood kicks off in like 1911 or something like that. Like, it's real early. And one of the first things they see fit to do is build this tremendous, monument and it's a copy of the Gates of Ishtar, and there's Ishtar's on it. There's giant Sumerian gods, bird heads and 6 wings, et cetera, and it's still there. It's still there over 100 years later. This gigantic monument is still there. So I look at. Go ahead.
Well, what you're talking about is from a movie by D.W. Griffith, one of Hollywood's pillars in the early days. And he built that for his 1916 movie Intolerance. So actually, everything you mentioned is in my book, in my second book, because I used to be a tour guide in Los Angeles, and Hollywood was part of that. So I know a lot of Hollywood architecture, a lot of Hollywood lore, like where stars live and stuff like that. But yeah, so they made this part of the Hollywood Highland complex. So what you're describing is like this Mesopotamian gate, and it's got 2 elephants on it, right? And they're balancing. And on one side, you've got one of the Anunnaki, or one of the Nephilim Death Squad, right? And the one that they feature on this gate is probably Enki, because he's holding a pot of water. And on
I actually I'm working on pulling up an image here, but please continue.
Right. So this is part of where they used to have the Hollywood, what's it called? The Oscars, right? And the Oscar looks like Ptah, the Egyptian god, and they would have that in the that Hollywood Highland Theater complex. It used to be the Kodak Theater. And then across the street from that is the old Hollywood Masonic Temple that is now owned by Disney and premieres all the Disney movies. So you've got a lot going on there in that little block, a lot of symbolism, a lot of Masonic stuff. Yes, exactly.
This is the one, right? Yeah. I mean, this is like kind of remarkable for its time.
Right in your face. Huh?
Right in your face. And, given what Hollywood is into now, you have all those kind of fun little things, right? Hollywood, the wood of the holly tree is what the Druids allegedly made wands of. There's like all this homage to ancient Babylonian magic that's embedded into Hollywood. To me, it seems super on the nose that this would have been the first massive thing that was erected.
I can't imagine how you couldn't have gotten to where you are in life being a tour guide. Like, you're looking at this stuff constantly and explaining it to people. How are you telling people about this stuff? You're like, this is actually that's actually a giant Nephilim there?
No, well, I didn't know all of that back then. So this was like 2004, 2005. So this was like right before I bought my first David Icke book. So I was kind of like, I only knew a little bit of political conspiracies, the big ones like the Clintons or FEMA camps or black helicopter, stuff like that. I didn't know a lot of ancient mythology and stuff yet. So this is right up to that point. I also used to be a tour guide at Disneyland before I knew a lot about Disney. So that was very interesting to go back and figure out what I was into then.
That's I was talking to a cousin, by the way, over this holiday week where she used to work at Disney. And, I was hitting her with she had no idea. I was like, what about the tunnels? And she's like, well, there's utility tunnels. I'm like, what about the kids that go missing?
What about the kids in the tunnels?
Like, what are you talking about? Oh my God.
What about all the weird stuff that goes on about?
Yeah, it's a night. Well, both of those things, both of those institutions, I mean, Disney being an institution, Hollywood being one, just immersed in this kind of ancient Babylonian magic. And on the topic, I wonder, how did that image that's on your slide, maybe you could bring it up from your slides there, of the Gates of Ishtar, and how is that relevant to
what number is it?
Okay. You got to scroll through it a little bit. Bring it up on the stage. It's really quick. It's only like a couple down. No, this is the other one.
Here we go.
Boop and boop. Scroll through this a little bit. Not that one. Not that one. Not that one. We're going.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah, there's a lot of stuff here. It's right after you see the altar of Pergamum, or at Pergamum. Maybe a little bit further.
Jeez, dude, you could have just told me a number. This is like we're
no
blowing the whole thing.
Oh, here it is. Boom, there it is. So I guess we should start here because we're already talking about it. How is this relevant to the conversation? This is in your slides, having to do with first century cults. And so how did this come up?
Sure. So this is the gate of Babylon, and Babylon would be a type of city that would be against God. So this is like ancient history. But the talk that I gave was about the first century AD, right? And I think a good place to start would be Dionysus, because he is the, like, well, mystery schools is where we get the idea of theater and acting and, the Greek plays, the masks, like the smiley mask and the frowny mask. So these dramas were seen as an extended ritual, and the ceremonies of, like, the mystery schools of Demeter and the Eleusinian mysteries, they're called, Dionysus, Bacchus. This is where we get the idea of acting, actors, plays, stuff like that. And if you want to go way back in the beginning, you could say that it comes from, like, Inanna, Enki, as all of those people were, the city was seen as their domain, and the temple was their home, and everything revolved around that in the ancient world, right? So Dionysus, the Freemasons call themselves Dionysian artificers, and they get a lot of their mythology from the mystery schools of Dionysus and how they play act in the third degree, like they play Hiram Abiff or King Solomon or whatever, you know what I'm talking about, right? So even the word tragedy or tragedia means the song of the male goat, or the goat that they would sacrifice to Dionysus. So all of these are tied into Hollywood really intimately, because another part of this is they think that they embody the god or goddess that they're playing. Literally, like in voodoo, you would say you're inviting the Loa, or the spirit, to take possession of your body and enjoy the material world through you, like a rider gets on a horse, and then when the spirit departs, you're yourself again. So this is the idea of, like, the very first actors and actresses invoking the gods into themselves, doing the play, and then the spirit leaves them and they are, human again. So
this is actually something that you see constantly right in our faces in modern day. Some of the best examples of that are going to be like a Sasha Fierce from Beyonce, or I think Roman is the name of, like, Nicki Minaj's thing, Rain Man for Eminem. The list goes on and on and on. And then, of course, when you look at acting in particular, some of the best method actors will openly say things like they're possessed by a spirit. And one of our favorite examples is Santana saying that he channels Metatron in order to write his music, Santana being the famous guitarist. And so this is, like, that's never gone away. And maybe you could make an argument that it's more ingrained into our society. Would you say it's more ingrained into our modern day society in comparison to when these things existed in antiquity? Or is it the same thing?
I would say it's the same thing. And it gets even stronger because these kinds of things were for just one kind of group of people. The initiates only got to see the goddess in her form. Or they got to see what was revealed as the sacred object. Let's say in case of the Eleusinian mysteries, it would be like a shaft of wheat. So this was for a very small group of people who could afford to bring the sacrifices. So in the case of Ceres, you would bring piglets to be able to, take part in the 10-day, Eleusinian mystery. And I made a joke like pay piggies, right? So you have to bring your piglets, or you have to give your tithes. You have to have free time. You have to be, kind of free of a lot of responsibility. So this is an aristocracy thing. People who can afford it, a exclusive club, and the secrets that are only revealed to them. And, like, these people go on to make a lot of decisions for civilization. They're powerful people or whatever. So you have this, like, circles within circles
of
influence, right? And so what our conference was about was it was called The Road from Athens to Jerusalem, and talking about philosophy of ancient Greece and how that was very valuable, but it wasn't the fullness of the revelation of, truth. And my talk starts in Rome and goes to Washington, D.C. And we're going to talk about Dionysus if we get to the very end. Again, is going to come up because it's pretty important when it comes to the symbolism that you're seeing now. So yeah, everyone, we talk about high profile rituals a lot, and that's what this is part of the revelation of the method. So everything that has been going on in antiquity and secret in cults is now being revealed on the stage, and through Beyonce, like you said, or Miley Cyrus or Britney Spears or whoever is the taking on the form of the goddess at that time.
Mm-hmm. So, and this is what's really prevalent right now too, as far as the goddess or the divine feminine. You know what? Actually, no. Please continue.
Well, I was going to say, it's funny when people talk about goddess worship and Gaia worship and the matriarchy and all of this stuff. It's like they think that it's uplifting to women, and it's really not. Yeah. So going back to the historical texts, the way that the goddess was worshipped, and we can get deep into that, was through mutilation, forced prostitution, human trafficking, just kind of the worst kind of practices that you can think of. And this is what venerating the goddess meant in real life. It wasn't, pregnant women laying around being fanned and eating grapes and like worshiping the divine feminine. It was not an easy life for women in particular. And this was kind of the crux of my talk, is like the transhumanism of the transhumanism of the past coming into the transhumanism of the future, where they have replaced women and the value that they bring to society with the Industrial Revolution and body modification, and we can draw parallels from the ancient world to this. So what we started in like ancient Rome, and what I did was take all of the Paul's letters, like to Romans, Corinthians, Galatians, Ephesians, and I profiled the city and their gods or goddesses, or the prominent gods and goddesses, right? Because when you think of Rome and Greece, the Greco-Roman world, you have your major gods, Jupiter, Saturn, Venus, the big 7 or 8 that are represented by the planets, and then you have the stars and the constellation, the sun and the moon. But there's all of these other very interesting cults that went on to shape the world and the religions that people don't talk about. And that's kind of what I'm trying to flesh out here, because goddess worship is very violent. It's very for the Skittles. It's extreme aestheticism and extreme self-harm. I call it the theater of self-harm, and we can read some quotes from ancient historians when we get there. But yeah, it starts off, the book of Romans. So everything we're going to be talking about today, and interrupt me if I'm just like prattling on.
Well, I do kind of already, everything that you're describing sounds like what we're being subjected to right now.
And it's excellent, because I was just reading through the book of Romans. We're doing the Bible study with, well, not the Bible study. Our friend Matt does a show called Straight Bible, and we did read a portion of the book of Romans. So I forget who he's talking to, but he's in a city and he's addressing their God specifically. Oh, yeah. And he's giving it criticisms, and he's also talking about why, like I guess the downfalls of it. But I was just kind of, it interested me, and I'm glad that you're on to talk about this stuff, because we should know a little bit more about what these people were doing at the time, and how to talk to them in that way.
And what they were up against. The early church was up against, human sacrifice, self-harm. What was another practice? Oh, exposure. So in the Roman Empire, it was common for every time a baby was born, they would bring it to the patriarch of the family, and he would hold it. And he, like from slave to wife, anybody who's born under his household, they would present it to him, and he would like yes or no. And if he didn't like the baby, if it was deformed, if there was too many girls, for whatever reason, he could be like, no, I reject this baby. And they would have to take it outside the city and set it, in the wilderness to expose them, or let the gods take care of the baby. And actually, this is the mythology of the founders of Rome, Romulus and Remus. I don't know if you've ever been there to Italy. There's statues of a wolf with her teeth hanging down, and there's 2 twins like suckling on this wolf. So the story goes that the city of Rome was founded by these 2 brothers who were left out in the wilderness to die, but adopted by a wolf. So this kind of ties into what we're talking about. The idea that human life was not super valuable. Women's lives were not super valuable at this time. And all the cities we're going to be talking about today were under the reign of Emperor Nero, who was the, infamous persecutor of Christians, right? And if you want to go to that slide, the Nero slide, it's one of the first ones. So
this all does sound like, by the way, I was saying before, you're saying that goddess worship has a lot to do with extreme aesthetics and even self-mutilation and things of that nature. And it's like, that's really the culture.
Beard ain't aesthetic, though.
No, that's not a good neck
beard. Well, and
I
mean, I don't want to spoil a bit, all the way to the extreme of castration. Okay.
Oh, wow. Check that out.
Yes, where you become the phallus of the goddess by castrating yourself.
And people that follow that Parsons situation, the Jack Parsons situation closely, and believing that he succeeded in bringing in Babylon. The implication there was that Babylon was a female deity that was supposed to usher in this era of the divine feminine. And even what you said earlier, where it's like people think that means one thing for women's liberation, etc. That is kind of how it was described by, I guess, I don't know, Blavatsky enjoyers or Aleister Crowley enjoyers, this idea that ushering in this entity was going to be, this big moment for women. And then what fruits did it yield, if any? It's self-mutilation, extreme aesthetics. We're looking at like, what's her name? Ariana Grande and everything. And it's like, like these women are, you want to talk about mutilating themselves.
Yeah.
Harsh, in order to achieve whatever look it is they think that's necessary.
Yeah, that's crazy. I think those two have probably been through some kind of Monarch MK Ultra program, twinning, where they put two people together and trials together to strengthen their bond with each other and the cult.
Trauma bonding.
Yeah. So Nero, he is actually a type of Antichrist, and he is the beast 666 mentioned in Revelation. Now, that doesn't mean that there's not another coming Antichrist, but the prophecies were fulfilled in 70 AD. So Nero, Titus under Nero destroyed the first temple in Jerusalem, or the second temple, I'm sorry. And now we are awaiting the third temple to be built from there. But he is one of the examples of true gematria, like not like, quackery gematria, but like actual his name equals 666. And he is, like a type of Antichrist. So that's where we're going to start. And the concept that ancient Rome and America actually have a lot in common. If you have read, Secret Destiny of America by Manly P. Hall, or I just did a show, last year I did one called The Secret Architecture of DC that we're going to hit upon a little bit at the end here. And it's funny that there's a meme that men often think of the Roman Empire without knowing why. You've heard that, right? Like, what's your Roman Empire?
Yeah, my theory on that is it has much to do with specifically the fall of the Roman Empire and how maybe its patterns apply to modern day America.
Okay, yeah, for sure, exactly. And it's not that the fall of the Western Roman Empire was necessarily a bad thing, because it was the martyrs that were integral to overthrowing this. So it's not like the Christians in the first century could have formed militias and armies and battled this, because Roman Empire was the most sophisticated war machine that the world had ever seen at the time, right? And there's some slides on that. And it's just like America is now the most sophisticated war machine that we've ever seen. And it was definitely the capital of idols, so much so that the state itself was worshipped, with citizenship being somewhat of an elevated honor or status in the world. Like, if you were a Roman citizen, you were above everybody else, right? So Paul was the Roman citizen from Tarsus, and he was, uniquely situated to kind of bring in the Gentiles, and because in the first decades after Pentecost, you have all of these different groups being converted. You have the Jews of the time who were constantly being kicked out of Rome and trying to get back in. So they were always in diaspora. And then you have pagans who were converted at Pentecost, and how to make a church or make a new way of living with all of these different types of people together. So he's constantly addressing problems that arise out of number one, circumcision. So they fought a lot about circumcision in the New Testament, if that is required for salvation or not, because the Jews were big into circumcision and the pagans were like, not really. And they concluded that no, you don't have to be circumcised. So many times in the New Testament, he says that it's not required. So if you don't want to do that, you don't have to, right?
Yeah, circumcision of the heart is what.
Exactly, yes. But it also makes sense in the context of the goddess worshippers, which we're going to talk about. So in Romans, yeah, he is outlining what it means to be a Christian while dealing with the persecution and the addition of all these different kinds of converts. So he speaks of ordination, and he talks about the authority to lead the church coming from the apostolic succession and the laying on of hands. And so that's something that the Orthodox Church talks about, like, Jesus touched Peter, who touched, his disciple, who touched him, and who touched him. So it's this like unbroken line of people who have authority to lead the church, as opposed to cult leaders, which, if we talk about Colossians, if we get there, Colossae, this is the beginning of Gnosticism and what's going to be Freemasonry and all these like weird tangent cults of Christianity, the Essenes and stuff like that, that kind of, go off base. And, now you have Tammy Faye Baker or whoever weird, TV preacher, those weird cult guys. So, the Roman citizens thought they were superior to Christians. The Jews thought they were superior because they had the Old Testament and the prophets, and they were circumcised. And in Romans 1, he talks about how salvation is for the Jew and the Greek, and he talks about the people who held truth with unrighteousness and ascribe the glory of God to idols. So that was kind of the theme of our conference, like Platonism and how people worshipped Roman empires and Greek philosophers instead of Christ. So Rome was definitely cult maxing.
Yeah.
Right. And
we kind of saw a resurgence of that. Well, I mean, right now we're in the midst of like unironic pagan worship, but it was preceded, I think, by this rise in Stoicism. Right, like that became popular. We talked about that recently on a show, and I do think that there's some correlation there, because first you get this rise of like philosophers that are, let's just say, venerated, in a big way, and that doesn't stick. But then it is interesting that what does emerge, and I kind of feel like they are connected, is now people are unironically Norse. Or they're back into the Greek pantheon, where these things used to be much more obscure and on the outskirts. Now they seem like relatively prevalent on Twitter. Like there's this and that sort of line of thinking is now coming into a combative conversation with Christianity. About whether or not Christianity is produced weak people that have allowed their country to be subverted by the Jew or the this or the that, and I can't help but wonder if like you kind of needed the Stoicism to get there a little bit. Stoicism. I prefer it the wrong way, but yeah,
the Stoicism to get to where you can defend yourself. You mean
the Stoicism to get to the actual unironic pagan worship?
Oh, yeah, definitely. And it's interesting that you mentioned like the white nationalist pagan gods or whatever, like Odin and those guys. Those were also worshipped by self-harm. So they required sacrifices. So every god or goddess that we're talking about apart from Christ, I have learned by studying, historical texts, they require sacrifice and votive and dedication way outside the bounds of what is reasonable. But Christianity is like, when we approach the chalice, when we take our communion, it says for the healing of soul and body. So we don't want you to be harming yourself. We don't want you to be cutting. We don't want you to be like offering your own blood or your children's
Mm-hmm.
blood. But every other pagan god and goddess was worshipped in this way, especially like Odin. So you would, if you were very devoted to Odin, you would pluck out one of your own eyes, right? Because he was the one-eyed god. They required self-sacrifice. They had a ritual called the blood eagle, where they would cut someone down their back and like crack open their rib cage so you could see all their heart beating. Yeah. So this is what's going on at BC, okay? And that's why the world needed Christ, because it was so in darkness that this was the only way to stop all of these bestial practices and like literally, you know, humping animals and hurting yourself and bloodletting, screaming, being out of your mind, being on drugs, drinking, just all kinds of debauchery, where that word even comes from Bacchus, who is the Roman Dionysus. So this is like kind of the world before Christ, and there's a reason why it's BC and AD, right?
Jamie, in your opinion, do you think this stuff worked while they were practicing it?
Well, yes, I think the fallen angels, you know, do bestow favors on people, but it's very arbitrary and it's very like deceptive and, you know, Faustian, like that's the classic cautionary tale. If you supplicate these things too much, you're just going to end up losing your soul, right? Because it doesn't go anywhere. It's just for material gain or to gain power in this world. And they're not that powerful, as we found out if we get to Ephesians and Colossians, like Paul says, like, yes, these things are real. He calls them elements or elementals, right? But Christ is more powerful than all of these. So why are you going to an inferior or deceptive type of entity to get your needs met, right?
Mm.
So I think there's a slide on there, the Vestal Virgins. So they had over 200 gods named, and they also, you know, had the unnamed god. And yeah, these are just like slides of ancient Rome. And now the Vestal Virgins, they kept the fire going in the form of the goddess Vesta, and her flame was never extinguished. And there was about, you know, 30 women who lived at the temple at one time. This is go back to Rome. And they kept this perpetual
I think we
flame.
passed it because I saw a bunch of chicks in a temple. Keep going.
It's somewhere.
I think it's like right over here. One more. Two more.
There we go.
This
Vestal Virgins. So I don't know if you guys know this, but when they built Washington, D.C. Capitol building, they actually put in a eternal flame in the basement that was tended and never went out until 100 years later or something. But they
really?
were
I didn't know that. That's crazy.
They were really trying to emulate ancient Rome because of the lines of Freemasonry and the lines of goddess worship that we are going to talk about. So, like, keep going. Next slide.
That's interesting because we've had conversations with, and I don't think it's any fault of his. It's just something he probably doesn't know. But shout out to Jeremy Ryan Slate, who's really great on ancient Rome. But the way he described the holdover from the aesthetics, especially the archaeological aesthetics the architectural aesthetics into Washington D.C.
Mm-hmm.
He kind of just said that it was each empire will sort of bleed into the next, and when you look at the most recent aesthetics, it's not uncommon to kind of carry them with you into the next thing that you develop, and so in that way it's innocuous, and it's almost a non-factor. But then again, I don't think that Jeremy looks at things from the kind of the schizophrenic POV that we look at things from. So It's interesting to hear about the eternal flame, because that speaks to a whole nother level of trying to hold on to the spiritual implications of that era.
Mm-hmm. Oh, definitely. And not only that, but there are 20 zodiacs incorporated into DC. So this city was made from scratch and made for a very specific purpose. But that's kind of like the climax of the talk. If you want to like lead up to that, we can. So like I said, the gods correspond to the sun, the moon, the stars, the planets. And then the great thinkers of ancient Greece had also been extolled to the point of deification and cult worship. So you can hit the next slide if you want.
Oh, that's not the right
That's the wrong
button.
button.
So
like,
sorry.
So you got Socrates, you got Plato. This is in the Vatican right here. You've got cults like Pythagoras. So I don't know if you guys knew this, but a squared plus b squared equals c squared comes from a mystery cult and a Looney Tune beautiful mind named Pythagoras, who also invented, our music scale and all of these mathematical equations. But he was also kind of a Fruit Loop, like he thought beans were evil and he didn't eat beans. And
I get a fair bit of indigestion. I'm not gonna lie. Legumes in general, I think they might be evil. But he was also the guy that kind of coined the idea of the golden ratio, right? Like the Fibonacci sequence.
I think he also created the circle of fifths. I have to look that up.
And that applies to music, right? Well, the circle of fifths.
Yes, and they even would identify each other with a pentagram on their palm that symbolized what you were just talking about. So this is kind of right up to Christianity and pre-Christianity, and Platonism and Neoplatonism actually plays a big part in this, because they were one of the first who was like, everything is one, right? The monad. And we're all trying to get back to like non-being into this monad, which Orthodoxy and Christianity does not teach that. It teaches distinctions between things, right? And that we are not all bled into each other in some kind of giant cosmic goo, but we have personalities, we have minds of our own that we can share in the Logos of Christ, but we are a distinct person, just like the Trinity is three distinct persons, but they are still God. So
can I just say on that topic that, that's something that I used to resonate with you when I was a younger man, and I didn't have any sort of, hold on Christianity or understanding of it. And, you do some psychedelics and you do get this feeling of oneness, which, very skeptical of these days. But that was a very horrifying concept, that it's like, basically you are stripped of your identity and you just glom onto the oneness again, that everything returns to source. And and some people would look at that as like, oh, isn't that like wonderful? The spirit goes on. I'm like, I wouldn't want to go on in that form. I wouldn't want to go and lose myself and just be part of this thing where I no longer am me, David Corbo, and I don't have all these experiences and these memories of these beautiful moments throughout my life. And what about my wife and kids and family and all this stuff? It's like that, but that's something that a lot of people are willing to resonate with, like, because I would say primarily because they do some psychedelics and they get this, they can feel this unifying field between them and pretty much every other biologic, thing on Earth. But that sounds like a nightmare to me.
Well, that's kind of like the horror movie idea of like a hive mind or the Borg or the body snatchers, right? Join us and we are all one. That sounds like a total nightmare, right?
Yeah, it does. And I think that you actually do see that exemplified in
Neuralink
and in demons, right? This idea of like legion and you are one, but they are many kind of a deal that's, it's I think it's inherently demonic. So yeah, not something that I'm into, but it was something that came across my field of awareness real early on. And I could see how if you see that, it seems profound and you kind of stay there, which I think a lot of people make that mistake.
Yeah. So Paul says in the beginning of Romans, he says, professing themselves to be wise, they became fools. And so that's not to say that philosophy was wrong or all bad, but they had some kind of knowledge of God, but they were not putting it into its proper use, and it hadn't been fulfilled yet in Christ. So the worship of idols and fallen angels had displaced the worship of God. And along with the classic philosophers of ancient Greece, like we were talking about, they had the Eleusinian and Dionysian schools, who he kind of alludes to, Paul does in Romans, when he talks about those who exchange the glory of the mortal God for images made to look like mortal man and birds and animals and creepy things.
Creepy things.
Yeah. Or creeping things, but creepy things, like Baphomet would be an example of this, or a satyr or Pan. That plays into what we're talking about with the all. Ego death is part of Aleister Crowley's ritual called the Night of Pan, where you like cross the abyss and you like obliterate your ego. Now you have transcended right and wrong. You can do neither. So he goes on to say that by worshiping nature and these things that they had made up, they violated nature. They became Skittles, they became fornicators, and a bunch of other bad things. I think that's in the slide, but you can go, look up, Romans 1:26, 28. It says God gave them over to a debased mind, and they became inventors of evil things. So
and this is an example of when God will allow like a strong delusion to fall over somebody who's unwilling to see the truth?
Well, yeah, it's kind of like you invite someone to love you so many times, but if they say no like 100 times, you have to go, well, you don't love me. Like it's a very relational way that we explain how we understand God. And if you say, no, I don't want to be united with God, God will say, okay, I can't make you.
It'll give you what you want if that's what you really want. That Pan keeps coming up a lot lately in really popular pieces of media. Like I saw it in Stranger Things. I don't know if you caught it, but it was on the mantle of a fireplace, I think, in the background. It was this engraving of Pan, and I had just seen Pan again in a popular movie that my wife and I watched, and I'm going, man, they're doing a lot of Pan imagery lately in Hollywood.
This theme also coincides with the scripture here, right? Verse 26, where he's talking about women exchanging their natural use for what is against their nature.
Who exchanging their what?
Woman. Shut up.
I feel like that's singular, but all right.
I mean, they're alluding to homosexuality here too, which is another it's a big theme in. Did you catch that in the Stranger Things?
Oh, dude, yeah, of course I caught it in Stranger Things. He's got
these things seem to always run hand in hand.
It was the Skittles power that allowed him to overcome Vecna in the first half of the.
There you go. Still, listen, man, you could shoot me, I guess, but I still did enjoy it.
No, I enjoyed it. I like the reference to frequency. I like the reference to the tunnels constantly. All of this stuff. Like, I get it. It's all
just sprinkle the gay stuff on top.
But they're like, but I mean, that's it too, right? Because what produces trauma produces homosexuality, and that's something that a lot of people don't like to face. But that's the truth. And so in that way, Stranger Things did a good job. They're like, he was super traumatized. Now he's super gay and super powered. So, hey, anyway, spoiler alert, guys. Sorry.
Right. And they're taking from the Alien franchise. I don't know if you noticed that with the whole tube going into their mouth when they're captured. So that's kind of like the face hugger that face RAPs you. Right.
Yeah. So I wonder about that too. Some people might have seen that video going viral where they were talking about this scene in Stranger Things and whether or not the implications were about butt stuff, forcible butt stuff, and I kind of like I saw that going viral to the extent where I'm like, is this just like really excellent guerrilla marketing on behalf of Stranger Things? I kind of think it was. Because it was accounts that like just don't talk about that sort of thing, that were all posting it, and they were posting really clean, clear video that was like, it didn't look like they screen recorded and cropped it. It was like, this is, 4K video of this scene, whereas typically you'll just like repost a thing. So I happen to think that was guerrilla marketing by on behalf of Stranger Things. But yeah, that was pretty clearly what the implications were.
Yeah. So. How long can we go on the show, just so I know?
Dude, we could go. We go. How long do you need? That's the question.
I just didn't know if I was trying to hurry or not to get to
No, let's go. Let's get to it.
Climax. Okay, so
I'm sorry. We're going to continue to derail you too as this goes on.
I just wanted to make this interesting point. So the early church was mocked for being a religion for women and slaves because the pagan mindset without Christ worship brute strength. So we're talking about the Roman Empire again. We're talking about force, dominion, conquer, subdue, expand, all of these. Not that it's always bad to go to war, but just conquering and subduing everything was not really what is going to help humanity, if that makes any sense. So
right.
Like I said, the Roman Empire, it was so strong. Only martyrdom and being resolute in the face of death were the nations converted, right? So in the beginning, an estimated 2/3 of the church in the 2nd century were women, where women only made up like a third of the total population. And they were continually being critiqued because how the church would start is a woman would be like, I want to set up a church in my house. And she would be responsible for all of the, the priest would do the liturgy, and we had clergy and everything like that. But it was like the female head of the household that really got the early church up and running in all of these different places. So they were constantly despising them. They were saying, this is for stupid people. This is for little children. This is for slaves. Like, obviously, if you are a conqueror, you're going to think like, oh, peacemaking, that's gay, right? Blessed are the meek, stupid. But all of these values that go against the Roman Empire were coming up through the grassroots, like literally through homes. And not that the male head of the household wasn't on board, but a lot of the practical things of the church were started by women. So, and this is where the first orphanages come from. So, like I said, when they would expose the babies in the Roman Empire, after you have people being converted to Christianity, you would have groups of Christians going out and looking for these babies that had been abandoned, and this is where we get the first orphanages from. So, lots of interesting stuff going on there. And now we can go to Corinth if you want.
Corinth. I think we have.
So these books of the New Testament, maybe the very next one.
There we go.
You know, when Paul wrote Romans, he wrote it from Corinth to a church in a city he had never even been to, but in less than 10 years' time, he would be brought there as a prisoner and martyred by beheading. So this is a very interesting background to the New Testament that a lot of people don't talk about. It's just like the real nitty-gritty of actually what happened. So Corinthians, I should say, about 55 AD, written from Ephesus. Now, Corinth was the capital of Roman Greece in between Athens and Sparta, and the city is very, very ancient. So this is a place that has been continually occupied since at least 6500 BC. So it was like a luxury destination for rich, famous, powerful officials. And the saying was, not everybody can afford to go to Corinth, right? And you have some major gods. We have Apollo, we have Poseidon, and we have Aphrodite. Now, Corinth had this temple to Aphrodite, who was the goddess of love. Not really, what Christians would say what love is, but, she was the goddess of lust, sensual love. And she had some 1,000 temple prostitutes employed there, of which the city was renowned. So you would be traveling to Corinth for a very specific purpose to go, pay your votive to Aphrodite by sleeping with one of her priestesses.
That's hilarious. I didn't know that. And when you
like
hear
a red
that,
light district, huh?
Yeah, it's a red light district. But when you hear that, like, Aphrodite is the goddess of love, it's like you think that means one thing, and then it's like, yeah, dude, like hookers.
I'm sorry. I kind of wanted to go back a little bit here because we're doing a study on Jude, and in verse 10 he's talking about but these speak those evil things which they do not know, but what they know naturally as brute beasts. In those things they corrupt themselves. It's like, so it kind of makes a lot more sense for the time. Jude is addressing these men, these pagan men, because that's like this is what they're exemplifying, like the lust of the flesh.
Yes, and so this is where you get, the Corinthians 13, love is this, love is that, love is right. Not paying a woman to sleep with her to get some kind of special blessing from a fallen angel goddess. And, this is, Aphrodite comes from Ishtar and Inanna, like you showed that gate in the very beginning. So she's just a later manifestation of the very first Nephilim, Anunnaki, Inanna, and who became Ishtar in Babylon, who became Aphrodite in Greece. And also branching off to different goddesses. You've got Isis in Egypt, which we're going to talk about too when we talk about Washington, D.C. So this made.
Can I say really quickly that it's interesting that you just said all that about the whole having to define what love is, because now once again, because I'm drawing all this mirrors to like modern day, we have been stripped of the understanding of what love is. Like love is love.
To redefine this.
Yeah, and it's like, talk about the importance of the definition of words, and if you can muddy that, which a standard has been set to say what love is. But if you can reverse that whole process to the very open for interpretation, love is love, which is amorphous and constantly changing shape depending on what letter is added to the LGBTQ thing.
Well, this is what I mean. One of the things that me and Matt are going to do in the Straight Bible Show is after like the Book of Jude, or after whatever we want to cover. We want to do just like a dictionary, a biblical dictionary, where we can look at words, terms, and phrases and say, what do these things actually mean when we're talking about them? Because who knows nowadays? It's like so caught in this like postmodernist.
Yeah, but that's what you do. You attack the definition of a word, and it destroys the ability to have even a baseline understanding of what's happening.
Blap is blap. Everybody knows
blap.
that.
Everybody knows what that means.
Blap. Yeah.
We're going to clip that.
We have to clip that. That's so funny. Okay, all right. So, please continue.
Well, the Greeks had at least 3 or 4 different words for love. You had agape, phileo, eros, and all of those different levels of love. I have a very unromantic definition of love, but I would say that biblically it is a set of behaviors that are demonstrated over time. A certain specific set as outlined in the gospel, and specifically in 1 Corinthians 13, love is patience, kindness, meekness, all of those virtues, right? It's not a feeling. It's not like a a longing. It's not a, what is that called?
It's almost a discipline.
Yeah. Oh, yes. So you can love somebody without the feeling. You can actually feel like you hate somebody, but through your actions, you will be loving them if you demonstrate patience, kindness, prayerfulness, and all of these things that are outlined in Corinthians. So that's why I thought it would be interesting to learn what the ancient world thought of these concepts and how Christ fulfilled them. And especially in Corinth, when we're talking about Aphrodite, and also there's a lot of money involved in this. And this is what made Christ so mad in the temple, is like when you make it a place of money changing and buying favors and sleeping with people and all of these weird practices. So this is what we're up against as Christians in the old world and in the new world, is redefining how we love people, I guess.
Yeah. I feel like we're trying to define it, and it's under attack strategically. For good reason. If you can bring things back to the way they were in antiquity, you know what I mean?
Mm-hmm. So I don't know if you can go back to the slides, but there is a girl on a tripod. Keep going. There you go. So that comes from Manly P. Hall's art from his book. And so overlooking the Gulf of Corinth in Greece is Mount Parnassus. So if you guys ever remember that movie, Imaginarium of Dr. Parnassus, that had a lot of esoteric occult symbolism in it, and for Heath Ledger.
It's a wild movie. That's a movie that's worth revisiting.
So, and he even died, after making this. So Mount Parnassus is where these people of Corinth would go to see the oracle of Apollo at Delphi.
Yes. So what we're looking at is the fumes coming up from and this is what's causing her to have these psychedelic influence visions.
Yes. So this was thought to be the center of the world, and it has 2 intersecting fault lines beneath this temple that released they called it the pneuma, or the divine fumes, which was like this narcotic gas that inhaled. When they inhaled it, it induced a trance state where they could give prophecies from. Sometimes they were right, too, because I think the oracle even prophesied Christ coming. So
that's fascinating. Yeah. And this is probably the most prominent example of people using, being under the influence in order to channel spirits. I mean, that's a tale as old as time, still happens today. And probably we talk about how meth is a good one, and that just comes up in our, studies constantly. but maybe better would be the noxious fumes emitted from the fault line.
The center of the earth.
The center of the earth. Yeah, probably a lot more effective than meth.
Yeah, so now in Corinthians, like he was talking about love, he's talking about don't let yourself be splintered into factions based on improper loyalty to particular leaders. This is where you get people saying, well, I'm a Christian of Paul, or I'm a Christian of Peter, or I'm a Christian of Timothy, or whatever. He's like, no. There's only one kind, and we're not going to fracture off into, infinite cults like we have been doing, right? So he's trying to deal with how to respond to idolatry. He is addressing people to this. I thought this was interesting because he starts off, my brethren, by those of Chloe's household, that I heard there are contentions among you. Like Chloe told me that your church is having these problems, and we are here to address this. So he's talking about the wisdom of the cross over the wisdom of the world again in Corinthians. Dealing with Platonism. He's talking about immorality. What's the next slide after that?
Looks like these folks fighting.
There's the I think that's, who's the one that died? Aristotle, who took the hemlock.
Oh, yeah.
So he talks about immorality, obviously, dealing with Corinth, and the importance of becoming one flesh with your own spouse. And now that makes more sense in the context of the temple of Aphrodite. And then in chapter 8, he's talking about eating food offered to idols because, throughout the Roman Empire, animals were sacrificed to the gods at feasts and festivals, and the leftovers would be sold in the meat markets. So Paul concludes that while an idol is nothing and it doesn't have the power to curse meat, it's still not really a good idea to partake in these festivals, right? So yeah, we went over love, and it's patience, humility, kindness, steadfastness, all of these things that he is outlining over and against temple prostitution.
Yeah, I mean that's a pretty solid stance to take. It's interesting too because we're also getting this like emergence of sex work is work narrative. Here in
we're not getting it. I mean, I feel like it's at its climax here. So
yeah, well, that's a poor use of the word climax, but yeah, I mean, it's just all these elements, nothing new under the sun. It's the same thing. It pokes its head up again and again, and you can see it all. And maybe this is when we're talking about why do you think of the Roman Empire or whatever. Maybe there's
it's like if you think OnlyFans is bad today, imagine just trying to go from here to, the bakery, and you've got temple prostitutes trying to get you to come inside and spend your money. So
that's actually horrifying. When I was in Vegas, there were it's kind of like that where you're walking down the strip and
they'll give you like a card or something.
They'll give you the card with the naked chick on it. And what's horrifying about it is that at least when I was there, it was little old Filipino grandmas. So like whatever they're struggling through, they got to be there, and they're like hunched over and I mean like in their 80s, and their like hands are shaking, and they're handing you boob cards, and then the floor is riddled in just nude women because everybody just drops them. So yeah, definitely a little homage to Rome there.
And that's really sad. And I'll put a caveat on this is like these girls, this is not choice. So, OnlyFans, it is a choice, but these people were sold into slavery probably as children, boys and girls, dedicated to Aphrodite by their parents. So they really did not have a lot of free will in this, especially women.
We don't do anything new, huh?
Yeah. I mean, it's rhyming a lot with Epstein's temple.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah, man. He's got that temple on his island.
Well, that's a bathhouse, I think. I just put that in my article for Decoding Culture Foundation. I wrote an article about Pinocchio and Gnosticism, and I did mention that the Epstein Island temple was based on this Turkish bathhouse, which was probably another, brothel.
Yeah. Well, there were images that came out, and I don't know if they were ever verified in any meaningful way, but and I don't even know if they were of the inside of that particular temple on the island, but what it certainly was of children. I'm guessing around the age of 9, these little girls in togas. And they're in like some sort of a serving capacity. Like look like they're, maybe bringing refreshments or something like that.
Talking about like John Podesta's artwork where they were.
No, this was not artwork. This was like,
actual.
This was an actual photo, and one of maybe more than a couple. But and this was something that was linked to the whole Epstein Island situation, but was never verified, because what was ever verified? It's only things that we did research on, and then hope that the government will tell us that we were correct at some later date.
Can you see this?
Yeah, that looks just like the island, but a much bigger.
Is that the
version.
bathhouse?
So this is in Aleppo, Syria. It's one of the oldest.
What is Aleppo?
It's a city in Syria. So it says built in 1491. It is located next to the entrance of the citadel of Aleppo. It's some kind of ancient bathhouse, but this is the Muslim architecture actually that was popular, this style. So it's not only creepy, it's also Islamic.
And was there ever, because it's like history is so, I can't remember really anything anymore, but I do think I recall a statue of an owl of Minerva, which kind of gets co-opted if you follow this owl's meaning initially, obviously being associated with the goddess Minerva, but then over time it becomes associated with Molech, and I'm a little cloudy on how that comes to be, unless that was just our own piss poor interpretation of it when this thing first started hitting. But that was also, there was like a golden owl on the temple on the island, wasn't there?
Oh, was there?
Oh,
yes.
I don't know anymore.
So the owl, the earliest thing I have seen with a goddess and an owl would be, it's called the Burney relief, and they use it a lot to depict Lilith. I don't think it's Lilith at all, because that Lilith is from the Talmud, but it's probably Inanna's sister of the underworld.
This actually, so that bleeds into Hecate.
Oh, well, we're going to talk about her in a second.
Oh, really? That bitch.
Yeah. Yeah. So Ereshkigal, yeah, she was Inanna's dark twin of the underworld, basically. And that is who has the bird feet, right, and is standing by the owl. So that's one of the earliest that we can connect owls to goddess worship. Now, a Molech is a bull.
Yeah, that's what something got convoluted and lost along the way, where like, even though Molech is depicted as a bull, at some point this owl became interchangeable. I'm kind of suspecting it never was, though. I think it was just a common mistake made by conspiracy theorists when we were getting bukkakied with information.
I think it's just syncretism, and I think it's just because Alex Jones, when he broke in there, he called it Molech, and so people ran with that.
Dude, that's probably exactly what it was. I mean, that was from the cremation of Care in Bohemian Grove, right? You have this giant owl statue.
This is how you get the Mandela effect.
That's beautiful. That's probably exactly how that happens. I wouldn't doubt that at all. Also, this bird-legged woman, Isis is often depicted as having bird legs, correct?
Yeah, so what we're talking about is really heavy syncretism, and especially in the case of goddesses, they all really seem to blend in together. And so you're going to find a lot of cross references. And then when we get to Washington, D.C., we're going to talk about how Isis is like Ceres, is like Demeter, is like Inanna, and all these things. So it's probably just one or two Nephilims, fallen angels with 1,000 names, because they even call Isis the goddess with 1,000 names, right? So if you want to go to Galatia, we can talk about the mother goddess, Galatia. So this is an entire region, right? You've got Galatia, you've got Cappadocia, Phrygia, all of this Asia Minor right here. And he's writing this in about 48 AD. And he is addressing a number of churches in the area, including Antioch, where they were first called Christians. So super ancient. As we go from west to east, we're going older and older, right? Because history starts in the Indus River Valley when the Tigris and Euphrates. So we're going older. And Antioch's main pagan deity was Apollo. And he was combined with Mithras and Helios, and other cities in the area were Iconium and Lystra and Perga. Now let's talk about, okay, so here you see Mithras. Do you see his little red hat?
Yeah.
Yep.
Oh,
Okay.
the Mithras cap.
Yeah. So that's called a Phrygian cap. Phrygian is right up next to Galatia. And this hat is, it would identify you as being from that region, right? Or being in the cult of Mithras or a goddess worshiper. And just like a cowboy hat would identify you being from Texas or some, localized region like that. So this little red hat, this Phrygian cap, was really important. And I want to put a pin in that because there's going to be a quiz later on.
All right, I'm gonna fail miserably. Let's go.
No, I'm just kidding. But yeah, there was a goddess in Pergia or Pergamum, or if you're talking about Greeks, there's going to be like 3 different names for one place. So Perga, Pergamos, Pergamum, all of those are the same place.
And that's ancient Turkey.
This is in Galatia. Yeah.
Okay. All right.
And this is mentioned in Revelations as the seat of Satan. And that's what you were talking about when we were pulling it up at first. So this was the immense altar of Zeus. Yeah, there it is. So huge pagan worshiping site. And in Revelations 2:12 is where they are mentioning this as like, I know you and you're the seat of Satan. Now this, in 1886, these relief panels and everything were brought from Pergamum to Berlin, Germany, and they built a museum around it and called it the Pergamum.
Yeah, this is where I forget who the guy that was hired by Hitler to design the Zeppelin Tribune grounds that he gave all his speeches from, but this is what he modeled it after, which is, gets into the whole Hitler was a pagan homosexual thing because, people were like, oh, well, he's cool with Catholics and Christians. It's like all of his iconography was of Zeus, and he's doing this, his speeches from something that's designed after it. And allegedly, you can't confirm it in any way, but some of the stones were said to have been moved from the Berlin Museum and then used in the construction of the Zeppelin Fairgrounds or Tribune Grounds, whatever the hell it was called.
Yeah. And not only in this museum has that, it also has the gates of Ishtar. So,
wow, I didn't know that.
Yes, same museum in Berlin, Germany, and I've been there and I've walked underneath this thing and sat on the steps before. So, between 1900 and 1930, all the bricks from Babylon, these blue, beautiful, inlaid lions, lapis lazuli, all these things,
lapis lazuli, right?
they were sent to Berlin and rebuilt inside the museum to bring the Lion's Gate of Ishtar back to life. Now, you're always going to see, when you're talking about ancient goddesses of Anatolia, it's going to be lions surrounding her. And this is where you get things like Lion's Gate films.
Oh, that's it. Oh, wow. What a banger. That's wild. Lionsgate Films.
Yeah.
Honestly, I got to admit, it is beautiful.
Yeah, it's really nice, right? We can do.
It's really nice.
This thing literally looks like it should be in medieval times.
Mm-hmm.
Wow, it's wild. Lionsgate Films, man, check that out. So always, I mean, Hollywood is just, that's the book series, right? Is Esoteric Hollywood.
Uh-huh.
Yeah,
That's
and it's like, it probably is. I mean, it's literally
It's
the
never
gift that
ending.
it never ends, dude. It's the most egregious thing too. And what's remarkable about it is that, as egregious as it is and how constant it gives in regards to symbolism, the average person has simply no idea whatsoever.
Yeah.
So it goes to show you they could operate in the open, unscrutinized by the masses, with no sort of pushback whatsoever. That's ridiculous.
Mm-hmm.
Man.
Yeah. So you've got Pergamum, you've got this Ishtar Gate, and then in Galatians, Paul is talking about slavery versus sonship. So this is a huge distinction between, again, Christianity and other forms of religions and pagan worship, even including Judaism and Islam, because Islam, you are seen as a slave to Allah, right?
Mm.
And Paul is saying, you're not like, he does say I'm a slave to Christ, but he's also like, think of it, the allegory of Sarah and Hagar, you know, the free woman and the bondwoman. And so in the ancient world, it's common to call yourself like, I'm a slave of Apollo, I'm a slave of Mithras or whatever. But Paul is saying, no, we are actually sons of God. We're not slaves to God. And we are not under this like sort of, you know, I will squish you if you don't appease me attitude, right?
It's about actual love. And then I like what you said before, where it's like all of these pagan entities require you to sacrifice to them. The only thing really that we're called to sacrifice is the desires of the flesh, you know, to give up our own sin and to accept Christ as our Lord and Savior. And that, you know, that's one of the things that I really love when you get into arguments with pagans online, and it's like Jesus is the only one that doesn't require a sacrifice. You don't have to kill something. You don't have to, you know, let blood or anything like that. But all the other ones do.
Exactly. And again, in Galatians, they are arguing about who is superior because of circumcision. And so Paul says that, he says, I wish the ones pushing the circumcision on the Gentiles would cut themselves off, referring to complete castration. Now, obviously, that's just a metaphor out of frustration, right? It's just like a saying. But why is he using such strong language in this passage? And, you know, one reason, like you mentioned before, is that he's talking about flesh as a general term for evil actions and depraved, and you have to like cut that off. But another reason is that in Galatia is where you find the worship of Cybele. So that's the next slide, I think. There you go. Mother goddess Cybele, and she's got those lions next to her again, right? And so this goddess was the most ubiquitous deity of all of Anatolia, where Galatia is. And the mother, she's like Magna Mater, she's Gaia, she is the Mother Earth also. And her cult was called the Gali or the Gala. And I think that's probably where we get the idea of like galas and these types of parties, right? So her cult, the Gala, these priests of Cybele and Attis, the historians say, in their very temples can be seen deplorable mockery before a moaning crowd. Men taking the part of women, they broadcast their crimes and confess with delight the stain of their polluted bodies.
Men taking the part of women.
So they're talking about like well, I mean, this gets into transhumanism in a little bit, right? Exactly.
That is exactly right. So the early forms of transhumanism were self-harm. You know, extreme body mods, cutting off body parts, biting yourself, being crazy. So this historian talking about the Gala, he says they wear effeminately nursed hair and dress in soft clothes. They can barely hold their heads up on their limp necks. Then, having made themselves alien to masculinity, swept up by playing flutes, they call their goddess to fill them with an unholy spirit, so as to seemingly predict the future to idle men.
I mean, this is the
wait, swept up by plain foods?
Swept up by playing flutes.
Like, playing flutes.
Yeah, playing flutes.
Because playing the flute is gay.
The skin flute.
That goes back to Pan too, right?
Yes.
Right.
By the way, this everything that we're talking about, I mean, I'm sure it's going to come up in our conversation, but I have to ask just in case it doesn't. We're in the throes right now of like, you know, the Catholic Church, Mother Mary veneration, whether or not this is an okay thing to do, and at the same time, the rise of the divine feminine, the goddess, right? And the ability for the Mother of Heaven, who is now an intercessor officially, according to, I guess, the Vatican, between you and Christ. And you know, I'm looking at this entire situation kind of like Santeria, where you can hide your pagan deities among the saints so that you can safely worship them without persecution. And I wonder, it looks to me like the same thing is happening with Mother Mary, where Cybele was her name, something like this, or Hecate, Isis, interchangeable, sure, but that's what's hiding behind Mother Mary. Do you think that is that part of this whole thing to you?
Yeah, definitely. And I think, we have counterfeit gods. We have dying gods. I mean, Osiris is one of those who died and resurrected. Dionysus, all of these vegetable gods, right? Who are a simulacra or a counterfeit idea of Christ. So just like the goddess Isis would be a counterfeit Mary, because Mary holds a very high position in the Orthodox Church. We call her Theotokos. We venerate her as the Mother of God. And this is very important, that Mary wasn't just a person, because Christ wasn't just a person. Not that she was sinless or anything like that, but by grace maybe she was. But she was a real person, not a synchronized goddess. So this is a story that has like historical precedence, and she actually lived, and she didn't go through all kinds of weird, mystery school illuminations and things like that. So just like, she's a counterfeit. I mean, the mother goddess is a counterfeit Theotokos. Does that make sense?
Yeah, and this same thing happens, by the way, with it's not anything to do with the saints that they become hijacked by these, and I guess it's just like ideas of like we talked about the whole Santeria thing, and you get the same thing with Christ, and obvious, right? Who was the child of Isis and Horus, Osiris, or am I?
Isis and Osiris had Horus.
Isis and Osiris had Horus, so obviously that's a counterfeit Christ.
Yeah.
But you also get that still to this day with like the whole Pleiadian narrative, right? So you're still getting like, it's not like Christ can't be counterfeited. In fact, you could bank on that's going to happen. So now you see the narrative of like, New Age Jesus or Pleiadian Jesus or, whatever, Christ consciousness. So all these things, I suppose at the end of the day, will be counterfeited.
Yeah, because Antichrist doesn't mean necessarily oppose. It could be instead of.
Yeah.
Right. And there's going to be strong delusions, and it's going to have to factor in Christianity somehow, because people aren't going to go along with a bunch of, crazies bloodletting and cutting off their body parts. It has to look good. It has to look like Christianity.
Yeah, it's got to come from the church.
Yeah. So this Gali, Gala, whatever you want to call this priestcraft of the goddess, nothing horrified early church people more than the radical way they transgress the boundaries of gender. And Christian apologists of this time frequently cited this Gali as representative of everything that they hated about pagan culture. Now, there is a little excerpt from the Golden Ass. Have you ever heard of that? There's their Gali. Yep. And here's Attis wearing the Phrygian cap.
Oh, yeah.
See that? So Cybele and Attis were the couple of this cult. And Attis actually castrated himself and killed himself because Cybele, his grandmother, was pursuing him sexually.
Oh, that's interesting. That comes up in the whole Semiramis, not Semiramis, situation, right? I forget who the hell that was, but man, that's escaping me. Maybe the chat knows, but please continue.
Well, I was just going to read you this little paragraph from the Golden Ass talking about the Gali. It says, the following day they went out wearing various colored undergarments with turbans and saffron robes and linen garments thrown over them. These are men. And everyone hideously made up, their faces crazy in muddy paints and their eyes artfully lined. Some wore white tunics fastened with belts and purple stripes flowing in every direction like spears and yellow shoes on their feet. They put the goddess, draped in a silk cloak, on my back to carry, and with their arms bared to the shoulders, hoisting enormous swords and battle axes. Remember that? Battle axe. Just log that away. They leapt about shouting, raving in a religious dance, and to the singing of pipes. After wandering by not a few small cottages, we arrived at some villas of landowners, and entering the first one, they immediately flew around every which way, howling cacophoniously. For a long time, they would hang their heads down on their necks with a quick twisting motion and whirl their hanging hair around in circles, and sometimes assail their flesh with bites. So can you imagine a bunch of men dressed up in costumes like women with makeup on, going from town to town with axes and cutting themselves, biting themselves, probably on drugs, probably possessed, letting blood. It says, at last, with two-edged axe they carried, everyone cut their arms. Then from among them, one of those pouring forth and raving pretended to be stricken with madness and affected repeated gasps from the depths of his breath, as if it filled with the power of a divine spirit. So there again, we are possessed, as if, in other words, the presence of a god were not accustomed to make men better, but weaker and ill. You could see by the cutting of the swords and blows in the whips, the soil became wet and filthy with the blood of the effeminates.
Jeez, this, you know what it sounds like? Somebody said it sounds like a pride parade, but if you mixed it with, there are these like Indian bloodletting festivals where all the men get together and they will take like these sort of, I guess, dull blades. I don't know. They're not like hyper sharp, although I have seen certain videos where they get opened up wide, but they're just hitting themselves on the back. It's like attached to a chain and they're all together doing this. And it also reminds me in some ways of the Haka dance, which is also sort of an ancestral war ceremony where they are trying to be filled with the spirits of their ancestors to prepare for battle. Mm-hmm. But yeah, it does sound a little bit like a mixture of those two in a pride parade.
So here we have a couple things being tied together. They all lived communally near the temple. So communism, self-harm, begging. So they were beggars, they were fortune tellers. If you didn't give them enough money, they would raise up their robes and show you their scars of where they castrated themselves. And this was like,
oh, dude, imagine.
Damn, at no extra cost.
If you didn't like give enough to them, they were like, well, curse you, and like show you their,
Oh, damn, that was a curse. We're being subjected to that all the time.
Look at this mussy.
Yeah, check out my mussy. Check out my sheenus. Yeah, dude.
Jamie, don't laugh at that.
Don't laugh
this
at
is a Christian
mussy,
show.
Jamie,
I know.
It's unbelievable. All right.
So these guys were part of the official Roman state religion. They had their own representation in the Senate. They were part of Greco-Roman world at every level of society.
Oh, by the way, thank God somebody just said it. Matt's Fogface said Nimrod, Semiramis, and Nimrod. That was the sort of Oedipal situation going on there.
Right.
And that was what I was referencing before when you were talking about his grandma having the hots for him.
They go like that story. The people you were just talking about, I think Inanna and Ishtar, but Semiramis, Nimrod and Hermes like kind of mimic the same story. It's I get them confused all the time.
I think the Hermes thing is a speculation that this is the same character that comes from that union there.
Hermes comes from Thoth, which they say comes from Atlantis, and that's what kind of cracks me up every time they are like, women can't vote and do all this stuff, and it's like, well, do you believe in Atlantis? Because this is the frame that we're dealing with. So the invisible college that they write about and the people who are in these cults and know about the architecture and all of the things incorporated and the Enlightenment, basically, they believed in these esoteric concepts. So if you don't know like where even democracy came from, like how can you say who can vote and who can't? Because the stuff comes from antiquity, right?
Right.
It's not just something they made up in 1776. Like this is like, well, democracy, actually the word comes from ancient Greece, but like they get a lot of their stuff from, they say Atlantis through a philosopher named Solon. So it's like, you have to learn the esoteric principles behind your system of government before you can even begin to say like what is right to. And I've never voted and I never will. But it's just a funny, like, do you know even what your country is like based on. So how can
well,
you
that's
say
where people will say that. They'll go like, oh, well, this is a Christian country. I'm like, well, I mean, like, or it was founded on Judeo-Christian values. And it's like, that's not the case. These are mystery school, foundations that we sit upon. And then, to trace those back goes way back into Atlantis. And then what were the ones before it? I forget the ones that supposedly came before it, but not Judeo-Christian values. That's for certain. You might have had that in the populace, but not in the founders.
Right. So is there a next slide with the two goddesses on it? Let me. Golly.
That was the one we saw, and then this is the one.
Okay, there's another Golly right there. Amandris is a woman.
Oh, that's what that is. I was like, it's got a stern face. That's just a dude's face. That's
How do you spell that? Golly?
Galli or GALA.
I'm gonna start using that we'll use that to avoid the ban hammer.
Oh, good call.
Oh yeah, good point.
Oh, there you go. Ephesus. Oh okay. No, I'm sorry. I think it's something else.
What's that? What's the one right before that? Okay, so I just wanted to wrap up Galatia real quick. So in 204 BC, the Roman Senate imported the goddess, or a black meteorite lump that was said to represent her, from Phrygia, and with great fanfare installed her in a temple in Palatine Hill. So that's in Rome. So, like I said, her cult was the begging priest, and they were known for their, theater of self-harm. And like their most shocking practice was castration or self-castration because of Attis. And it says, neither is he changed into a woman, nor does he remain a man. So now he's something else. Now he is the phallus of the goddess, they call it. So here's, again, some kind of like hermaphroditic idea, right? And they were widely assumed to be skittles and synonymous with male prostitutes. So in some cities, worshippers of the goddess clashed with the Christians in the streets over their festivals because they coincided, like Easter and Christmas. So there was a lot of fighting going on over, who would win, Christians or goddess worshippers. I think the Christians would probably win.
So what's your take on that? Because I know a lot of people say that Christmas and Easter are based on pagan holidays. Are you saying that they are actually Christian and there is some sort of conflict? What's the deal?
Our holidays are pretty vetted. Jay has done a lot of good academic studies on like December 25th and why that is actually Christmas. And Pascha comes from Passover. It's not Easter. It doesn't come from pagan Ishtar and Eostre of the Norse gods or whatever. It is actually comes from Passover in ancient Egypt. And so that is our Easter. It's called Pascha, right? But I think these cults, adopt and syncretized, like you said, in the case of like Santeria and stuff. They even in our liturgy, so we have this part where it says catechumens depart, and in the old days, people who were not baptized were not allowed to watch the communion because pagans thought that it had magic powers, and they would run up and try to grab the chalice and run away with it because they thought it was, magical. So in these times, these clashing pagan times, you really had to protect the Eucharist.
Oh, that's interesting. So that reminds me of who invaded the temple and the Holy of Holies and found that it was empty. And what was that story?
Oh yeah,
it's very similar, because it's this expectation to find a thing or to have this magical, thing happen to you.
In the Old Testament?
Yeah.
Oh, I don't remember. Maybe Jay would know. He would probably know. So you want to go to Ephesus? Do we have time? I don't know.
Yeah. We're still good on time. As long as you're good on time. I know. And thank you for being patient with our derailing. I know you're
Pompeii.
Okay, there we go.
Right. Yeah. So Pompey enters the Holy of Holies expecting to find the Ark of the Covenant, but they moved it.
There we go. But I was just saying, I know Jamie's not feeling well, so.
Yeah.
Thank you for bearing with our derailments.
Oh, no problem. I'm having fun. If you guys are interested,
Yeah, let's go.
So here we are in Ephesus, or this is Ephesians, right? And this lady up in the corner is
She's covered in boobs?
Those are eggs.
Oh,
actually.
Eggs?
So, yes, here's another transhumanism kind of symbol, like half woman, half bee, because she is Queen Bee. So
that's interesting. Queen Bee. This is something that I don't know a lot about, but comes up quite often, especially in the context of Beyonce and the more esoteric meaning.
Is that why she's black?
That's why she's black and she's covered in eggs, because so is Beyonce.
Yeah, basically, there you go. So Ephesians is written from a Roman prison, so he is really feeling the pressure now. He's about to be martyred. This is about 62 AD. And Ephesus is dedicated to the goddess Artemis, or Diana, who was central to the entire city's identity. So if Ephesus was like Disney World, Artemis is Mickey Mouse, right?
Okay,
There's no Ephesus without Diana, or she's also called Artemis. And she's distinct from the other Greek Artemis, who was about the hunt and the twin of Apollo. This Ephesus is about fertility again. And just like Aphrodite, she had her own, cults and prostitute cult. She was called the Queen of Heaven. Her statue that they worship there in Ephesus is said to have fallen down from Zeus. And there's actually a verse in Acts 19:35 that says, it's talking about there's a city clerk of Ephesus, and he calms a crowd who's rioting by reminding them that their city is the guardian of her sacred image that fell from the sky. Maybe one click after that.
That's interesting. So it's the whole statue is, I mean, her image, right? So there's no real way around that.
Yeah, you'll see on the next slide. It's not actually. It's just like so there's her temple, which is one of the 7 wonders of the ancient world. Like, this was huge.
Oh, that's not the okay. It looks like the Parthenon, but it's not the Parthenon.
That's the temple of Artemis in Ephesus. Okay, so here's the thing that fell down from the sky, which is actually in a museum in Liverpool right now. But
wait, which one? The one on the left or the one on the right?
Yeah, the one that looks like a bullet, kind of.
That's interesting.
Right. So could be like a meteor that they, carved a little bit, but it is mentioned in the Bible. And so if Ephesus was a giant tourist town for her specifically, and a popular item to sell to tourists was, this small little shrine, which was like a little toy, basically, that people could worship wherever they went. Now, Paul spent a really good amount of time here, and a lot of the occultists in the city were converted. So Acts 19 talks about unusual miracles by the hands of Paul in Ephesus, where like fabrics that he had worn could heal the sick or like cast out demons. I don't know if you're familiar with that.
Yeah.
We were actually talking about that recently.
So a lot of people who practice magic in Ephesus brought their books together and burned them in public. Next slide, if you want to click on that.
Oh, yeah.
And so it says even in the Bible that the value of the books was totaled to 50,000 pieces of silver, which like some calculations put up to $1 million or more.
Dang.
And anybody who's like tried to amass a esoteric library feels that pain, like burning my books that I spent so much money on, have all these like secrets in them. And then there's a story in Acts 19 that tells about this maker of Artemis trinkets complaining about the impact that Paul's evangelism was having on their souvenir business.
Oh, that's hilarious. Yeah. That his spreading of the gospel is impeding their sales.
Yeah. Demetrius. This guy Demetrius is upset about that.
This actually led to a giant mob of makers of Diana merchandise to attack Paul and his companions in the theater and hold them hostage for 2 hours, shouting, "Great is Diana of Ephesus."
Wow.
Yeah, that would be terrifying, I think. So they were serious. They were so serious about her. Her crown is actually the city's own walls, demonstrating that she is their protector.
Oh, that's what her crown is?
Yeah.
Oh, that's
So
fascinating.
she was called Queen Bee, and her priestesses were called Melissa or Honey Bee, and the male priestesses were called King Bees. And I think there's a slide of Beyonce in there.
Oh, there you go.
Okay, there they are burning their books. There's Diana of Ephesus with her bee symbolism there, right?
Okay.
And then there's Beyonce, Queen Bee.
Ooh.
So there you go. And that's an interesting crown that she's got in the bottom left-hand corner, where she's obviously done up like a goddess.
Mm-hmm.
So you suspect that this is the Queen Bee that she's referencing, or not referencing, maybe more accurately, trying to embody, channeling, yeah.
Yeah, probably. I mean, at the end of the day, it's just like Isis, probably.
Yeah.
But yeah.
It's the divine feminine, which I'm sure is, well, I mean, Beyonce, I would imagine, is in the know, but a lot of these lower level artists are sold conceptually this idea of the goddess or the divine feminine, probably much to the context that we talked about earlier, where it's like this uplifting spirit for women. Although I think Beyonce probably has a little bit more of an intimate knowledge of what she's dealing with.
It's not, it's slavery. It's,
yeah,
slavery, basically. So yeah, there's like over 50 cities in Anatolia in this area featured Artemis's image on their coins, as well as bees. And you can see why Paul is trying to stress here in Ephesians the importance of marriage, the importance of purity, the importance of spiritual warfare. And he even says it is shameful to even speak of those things which are done by them in secret. Now he's talking about these mystery schools. And the darkness will be exposed. So in this section of the Bible, in the Orthodox Study Bible, there's a whole exegesis on marriage and the holy marriage, and like what the reasonable gender roles are, and how beautiful like Christian marriage is. So that's why they are talking so much about living chastely and in purity with your own spouse here in Ephesians.
I was just seeing another thing that's going viral, where it's Mia Khalifa, the scholar, and she's talking about how marriage is not a, she says it outright, it's not a sanctimonious thing. I forget what the word that she used, but it's not a sacred thing. It is simply a piece of paper for the government, and that women need to be leaving their husbands, which is remarkable because it's like
yes and no.
Well, we've crossed this threshold where a character like that doesn't even have to hide who she is in order to be a thought leader among lost women. Where at least like back in the day,
she's a thought leader.
She's a thought leader. That was good, dude. But yeah, it's just remarkable because, all of these things that we, somebody's in the chat, the scholar, shout out to Elohim. So yeah, all of these things though are just, it's nothing new. It's all the same crap and the same fights and the same battles, the same argument over definitions, or at least trying to keep a definition and not have it ripped out, by the culture and then twisted and used to lead people astray.
Yeah, and this gender war, red pill stuff is just us recreating the fall over and over again, the divide between men and women. So that's something that we really have to be vigilant about and cut that out and start loving each other instead of blaming each other for.
Yeah, they did a really good job of that because the internet now, and I would say it's probably more effective than what, they went through in antiquity, because we have this remarkable ability to pull up any chosen people's shortcomings in a video montage, even, to the tune of, you could watch it for a half an hour long if you really wanted to. Women doing horrifying things, men doing horrifying things to galvanize the women to the feminist movement, or black people doing horrifying things. It never ends. That's really a thing that, we often say we're being subjected to the most sophisticated propaganda machine in the history of, mankind. And I think that at least we have that going for us. Like when I say it's all the same thing, or like maybe, and then some, because is a well-oiled machine, and it's really good at its job.
Well, and as we're seeing, all these threads are from the beginning of time that you can follow. So it's not just like, oh, 20th century Western women are the worst, or like, it's like we've been having the same problems since the fall.
Yeah.
And there's people who can identify them and people who have solutions. And unfortunately, we only have a lot of, people who can identify problems, and they don't really give you very good ways to heal that.
It is interesting how you correlated to that the red pill movement, or the manosphere, to Eve being tempted, eating the apple, and then when questioned by God, Adam goes, but this woman you gave to me, and it's almost like it's like a deflection.
Yeah,
that's
a funny point. Yeah.
Yeah, it's exactly what's happening now again. I mean, I guess this whole episode is exactly what's happening before, but also now again.
This woman you gave to me.
Well, yeah,
she's broken.
Yes. So in the garden, like God says, what have you done? And she said, the serpent tricked me. And that was true. Right. And they teach us this in catechumen class. And Adam says, the woman you gave me. So he blames God and he blames women.
Yeah.
Right.
And so they say
saying
that
Adam was just like an Andrew Tate.
Yes.
Yeah, but Adam was given dominion over these things, and it was ultimately his responsibility.
Yeah.
And they say that man's nature needs to be healed first, and women will follow.
Yeah.
Lead, right? What was I going to say about garden?
We do talk about that often, though, because it's like a lot of the blame is cast on like the feminist movement, but it's only allowed by weak men.
Yeah, and I'm working on a show actually called Feminist Derangement Syndrome.
Oh, interesting.
Kind of pushing back because everyone has been called a feminist by now. Even Rachel Wilson, they're calling a feminist because it's like whatever you say that somebody doesn't like, it's feminism now. So it really has lost all of its meaning, just like racism or these words, right? So it's like we have to grow up and go a little bit deeper and realize that, there's two early branches of feminism. Now we're getting really off track, but there's the feminism of care and the feminism of liberation. And one says that we need to care about protecting women from exploitation, and then the feminism of freedom is like, well, we need to make them more like men, and this really comes out of the industrialization of the Western world, because you're taking women, all of the jobs away that women used to do, food processing, textiles, home management, and you have made it into a factory now in like the 1800s. So this is where your feminism is a response to women being displaced in the world and their value being depreciating, because now why do I need a woman if I can just go buy a sweater, or I can buy processed food, or I can buy a prostitute, or what? Like, where's my high value woman? So that this is something that men are going to be up against now in the future with AI, and like wondering where my value comes from in the world, because everything is going to be automated and taken over from them. So that's like something maybe next time I come on, we can talk about feminist derangement syndrome.
I would love to do that. We talk about that often, this idea of like two taxable incomes, and then whether or not it's the initial goal, what ends up happening is that your child is left to the indoctrination system that is state funded education, and it's like a multi-pronged attack on the family unit, and this liberation aspect of feminism really enables that to take place. But yeah, I mean, we'll save that for another one. That would be fantastic.
I mean, it's really fascinating too, and it's the leading up to transhumanism, because it's one of the first with the birth control pill, you are going against biology. And that is paving the way for like body mod, Neuralink, robotic integration, all of these things can be traced back to, occultism and feminism with the second wave and the birth control pill, and women need to be exactly like men to be, take place and have respect in society, because this comes out of enlightenment too. Like, who am I in the new world if everything is just quantifiable and boiled down to like how much cash can I produce, and am I just a cog in a machine? So this is like a very existential crisis that women are going through. And it reminds me of that movie Metropolis too. And just the machine against Eve and biology. But we're getting way off track. So let's go to Philippi if you want to.
All right, let's
sure.
go.
I want to address the chat here. They said it's a ritual to not get pregnant, which is actually
to jot.
Get pregnant, but they're retarded. It is. I mean, you're doing something every single day at the same time, taking this one little pill in order to. That's a crazy thing when put into context. But let's go through the slides. I don't know what. This is a marriage contract.
To that point, the evil dark magic has a lot to do with sex that does not produce a child. So taking an orgasm from a priestess that does not result in a baby, but results in something that you were wanting in a material way.
That's fascinating.
Yeah. So here we are at the gates of hell, literally.
It's beautiful.
Yeah,
it is beautiful.
It is beautiful. So this was written Philippians when Paul was under house arrest in Rome. And it was originally named Panay, after the Greek god Pan. So here we are back to Pan, the all, the one. And a temple dedicated to him was built near a cave, and that was considered his birthplace. So it's a really it's a really beautiful area. Melting snow from Mount Hermon forms the waterfalls and stream and make up the headwaters of the Jordan River. So a lot of key geographical points like converging here. And Caesarea Philippi sits in this nice lush area that's like 25 miles from Galilee and 150 miles from Jerusalem. And in the Old Testament times, this was a center of Baal worship. So this area has got a lot of historical precedents for sacrifice, human sacrifice, child sacrifice, debauchery. This is where King Jeroboam built his high place, the anger god, in 1 Kings 12. And so eventually Baal was replaced by these Greek fertility gods. And then on the cliff above the city, they built shrines and a temple to Pan. And the cave here was thought to be a portal to the underworld. So now we're getting into this, the gates of Hades, basically. And if you've ever seen like Buffy the Vampire Slayer, this is going to be the Hellmouth. Right. Right on.
What's interesting is that so Native American sort of I forget what the terminology. I'm going to call them witch doctors. It's not quite witch doctors, but those who engage in like skinwalking, for example, will claim that you in order to gain access to the sort of spiritual underworld, it does require a physical entrance in the real world underground, so a tunnel, which kind of would explain why these things are so prevalent. Stranger Things, once again, really heavy on the tunnels and everything. But that is not just found here; it's found in all these different mythos. This idea of a physical cave entrance or physical tunnel being a gateway to the underworld.
Mm-hmm. And like we were talking about in Delphi,
shamans. Thank you, Matt.
Yeah. That was also considered, like some kind of portal to, with the fumes coming out. I think they thought a snake lived down there, the Pythia, like a giant snake. But so this in Philippi, the gates of hell is known as the Grotto of Pan, where a spring flowed from a cave that contained a bottomless pit. So like, if you've ever wondered why Satanists do things in grottos, and Anton LaVey talks about grottos. You've got the grotto of the Playboy Mansion going on. This
I
is
didn't
all.
know that. They got a grotto?
Yeah. Oh yeah,
that's crazy.
So not only was there like a lot of debauchery going on, but also probably a lot of espionage. Filming people in the grotto and blackmailing them, stuff like that. So members of the cult of Pan they thought that he rose from there in the spring and returned in the winter, and then in the new year, they would do their rituals aimed at facilitating Pan's return by enticing him with bestiality. So
enticing.
Always comes back to that. Like we were just talking with Austin Picard, and there's a element of bestiality within these like more modern cults. I think he mentioned the Finders, something about the Dutroux case. It's always like aspects of bestiality, but it's rarely mentioned.
It never goes away.
Yeah.
So here, this area was associated with like despicable acts, even more so than Corinth. You know, if Corinth was Vegas, this would be like worse than that. What's worse? And the bottomless pit, you can imagine what kind of things were thrown in there. People, children, animals, all kinds of stuff. And these were to appease the underworld gods. And so it was considered the worst place on earth by the nearby Jews. And I found it interesting. From this strategic battle location, Christ gives the sermon in Matthew 16, where he talks about Peter is the rock I will build my church on, and the gates of hell will not prevail against it. You know that passage, right? So he's literally sitting there in Philippi at the gates of Pan saying, this is the worst place ever, but I'm going to build my church with you, and this place is not going to prevail, or you will be victorious over, places like this.
That's deep, right?
Yeah.
So Pan is descended from Dionysus, Bacchic mystery schools, where Pan is like the extra naughty attendant to Dionysus, right? And he was the god of shepherds. He could lull men and animals into a trance with his panpipes. He is part man, part beast. So here's another instance of transhumanism. And this is where we get the idea of like Baphomet, who is the alchemical resolution of like light, dark, man, animal, heavenly, mundane, right? He's like the synthesis of opposites. And Pan is extremely sexually aggressive. Now, this PowerPoint I made for a church. So it doesn't have like all of the super spicy pictures that I could have.
I thought you were going to say that it did have it and you made it for the church. No. And I was like, how'd that go?
No, I was nervous because, like you have those like 2 Timothy bros who like women are to be silent in church. And I'm like, well, my priest asked me to give a talk in front of our bishop and other like prominent clergy, and they had no problem with it. So
isn't it funny though how you could talk to like all the people in your audience and stuff, but like the pressure of talking at your church about these things is like, it's different.
I know. I was trying, like, how do you say bestiality? But I think I pulled it off. They loved it, like they're like, nobody fell asleep at your talk. And I'm like, yes, okay.
Well, that's great. I mean, this is the history of things, and so it should be known. But it's just like, if I was asked to speak in front of my church, I'd be super nervous, despite talking to all the people that I talk to regularly.
Yeah, so I had trouble finding an image of a statue of Pan that wasn't super sexually aggressive with giant genitalia and all that stuff. So he is the one. Yes, and actually the statue, if you look at it from another angle, you can see all the junk. So in this angle, the knee is covering it up, but other photos of it, it's all exposed.
Gotcha.
He turns, the natural order of things. He overturns these things. He is like the root of the word panic, pandemonium, pandemic.
Do you think that whole concept of Pangea is just a made up thing that like kind of pays homage to him?
Pangea. Well, pan means all.
Yeah, this idea that like there was one full convergence of the continents, and then over time the tectonic plates shift and the continents separate and things like that. But I've always wondered about that.
Well, honestly, I don't have a problem with that per se, because it could be that the Earth is growing over like long millennia, like just growing, like everything grows. So maybe the sphere could get bigger and bigger, and then the continents could separate. So
okay,
It could be. There's nothing in the Bible that says that it wasn't like that. So let's go to 20th century real quick, because Pan is the prominent god in Aleister Crowley's Thelema, right? Which informs our entire 20th century sex, drugs, and rock and roll of humor culture. And movies, you can add to that. He calls them the hidden god. He's the universal. He's the archetype of the Baphomet of Eliphas Levi and the Cernunnos of Wicca. So, like I said before, in the Night of Pan, in Crowley's magic is a state of union with the universe through the destruction of ego and just the obliteration of everything that you are.
There's that destruction of ego again. Yeah. The ego death, which has become hyper popular. And, I kind of look at Rogan very skeptically these days, because not only is he promoting these psychedelics and a lot of these kind of like John C. Lilly float tank things, but this ego death that goes along with it and how he talks about the importance of that. I don't know that that's accurate.
Well, I mean, now Rogan is also coming from within the church, which is
very weird.
strange.
Did you see what he said? He's like, I think Jesus could come back as like AI. Like,
he said that. The weirdest ones that I've seen recently is Tommy Robinson's conversion. So he went to somewhere with Stanford University and took ibogaine, and has come back and said, I am a true Christian now, and I'm going to take back the UK for white men. So
him and Connor, huh? Conor McGregor as well.
Yeah, Connor also having this transformation. Very, very interesting.
Oh, that's what I meant. Conor McGregor, not.
Oh, okay. All right. I was like, damn, both of them, dude?
Yeah. So, the boxer is what I'm talking about.
Yes. Yeah, well, I'll allow it.
Sorry. So here you've got Jack Parsons doing rituals to Pan, where he's working at Caltech, and Jet Propulsion's laboratory, rockets, all of this stuff. NASA.
Yeah.
The beginning of NASA. All foundation prayers to Pan, because Pan, the rocket, is like a phallus.
Yeah,
right?
yeah, there you go.
Yeah. So he is the power behind that. And so let's keep our eyes on the technocracy here, because, Elon and those guys do the same kind of stuff, use the same symbols. I mean, the Twitter logo is now the mark of the beast, according to Thelema.
Yeah, and who do you think he's communicating with when he's on ketamine?
Yeah, exactly. So Pan also holds a special place in the United Nations. If you go back to that black cube, he's
always a black cube, huh?
Yeah, he's associated with Saturn because of Capricorn.
Let's go back
one. And there was this thing called the Findhorn Foundation, which was like this eco village in Scotland, and the founders claimed they could talk to vegetables, and that they could talk to Pan in the woods and in the forest of the United Kingdom. And they became a integral part of the United Nations, and they've had a relationship for a long, long time. This meditation room at the top of the United Nations has this black cube, and that's identified, I'm sure your audience will know, with Saturn, who is the devourer of children as time. And there's some quotes on there, but I think we have to hurry up a little bit. So
yeah, we're coming up on time soon. How many more? I guess we're not counting by slides, but
we're about halfway through.
About halfway through.
Okay, let's go fast. We'll do that.
Yeah, let's go.
We have maybe about half an hour left.
Okay.
So the only way to withstand the gates of hell, here Paul's talking about, is humility. So that is one thing they stress in the Orthodox Church, is that the only way to beat Satan is by being humble, because Satan doesn't eat. Satan knows the Bible back and forward. He can do all of these things, but he cannot be humble. So that is our only best defense.
Wait. I want to say this entire thing is really well done, and it's really interesting. And I would kind of hate to rush it, but I don't know what your schedule is like, Jamie. Would you be open to a part 2 so that we don't have to fly through this second chunk?
Sure. Yeah.
Yeah, because I it's just like it's so rich in detail, and it's like I really want to derail you and ask questions, and I kind of don't want to just blow past all this fascinating stuff. I don't know. Maybe we could even get you in studio for the part 2.
Well, we have to go to Tennessee soon, so I don't think we can travel. But maybe I can squeeze it in. Yeah, we can do a part 2.
All right, so let's do that. We'll convene after the show, and we'll do the whole calendar thing.
It gets really interesting.
That's what I'm saying, and I don't want to just like rush through it. Like this is all every time we talk to somebody, it's kind of the story of everything. And you can't rush these things. So I think a part 2 would really be justified here, Jamie, if you'll come back. So let's do this then. Let's put a pin in it here.
Okay.
And I guess let's just remind the people and well, first off, thank you for your time. Thank you for doing this. I know you weren't feeling good, and I'm sure you had intentions of laying this thing out. Didn't think you'd be derailed so much by us, but
I think she knew. She's been on before.
Yeah, she knows how it goes.
So whatever you want me to do.
Well, I want you to lay out this presentation because it is very fascinating. So thanks for hanging in there with us, even though you weren't feeling so good. Let's remind everybody where they can find you.
Okay. My spin-off channel is just my name on YouTube, Jamie Hanshaw on YouTube. And we also do a lot of shows on Jay Dyer's channel on YouTube. And jaysanalysis.com is where you can find all of our books and my books too. And my member section on YouTube is actually getting pretty interesting because we just did a show about Mormonism.
Oh, really? They don't like when you talk about them.
Well, here's another sex cult, spacey sex cult. So
the Mormons? No, come on.
Oh, yeah. Alistair Crowley admired Joseph Smith for his polygamy and ideas. But if you go down where it says the Magic Marriage Man, so yeah, we did a show with Thomas from Paranoid America.
Love Thomas. We got to talk to him, but he's a weekend guy. He wants to come to the studio, but he only does the weekends, and we're just losers.
Yeah. So that one's for free with Thomas, and then in the members, it's called the Magic Marriage Man, where I found this scholarly paper that Mormonism is based on Hermetic Kabbalism and Rosicrucianism. So,
oof, Mormons real mad about that one.
They're not happy.
When you say that.
They're not happy with me.
Well, they want to have a mountain full of semen, and they want you to leave them alone about it.
Yeah, and that's fine. That's fair.
Have you seen the Real Lives of Mormon Wives?
My wife. She watches the Real Lives of Mormon Wives, and all we do is revel, or we're in awe at how I don't know what about them is Mormon. I don't know what about them is following Christ. I have no idea. It's just like a run of the mill reality show. But why? What have you gleaned from them?
They're a train wreck. I mean, they're just a swinging sex cult, and that's what the entire thing is about. Like, if you watch that show with me and Thomas, I go through their endowment ceremony video that somebody like leaked the footage. Like, they had the camera in their pocket and they went through the whole thing, and it's basically like Freemasonism. That's the word. Freemasonry.
Really?
Big time. You have to give your certain passwords through the veil and the last handshake and the secret names and the whole motto that they say in like the third degree or whatever is like about their loins and their fecundity and their
I don't know the meaning of the word. Fecundity?
Fecundity, just like fertility.
Oh, okay. I'm gonna use that. I can't figure out where, but I'll use
their loins. Their loins are girded.
My fecundity.
Yeah, so go check that one out. It's really fun, and Thomas always does a great job.
Yeah, no, that's awesome. I have to check that out myself because it could serve as a handy addendum to our watching the Mormon Wives show. That's fascinating. They're very interesting. Well, thank you, Jamie. I hope everybody goes and checks out your work, and I look forward to the next time we talk to you. You have our calendar. I mean, as soon as you can get back in here, let's do that.
Okay, yeah, very good. I'll look it over. And next time we will go to Thessaloniki and Colossae and Washington, D.C.
Let's go. Very interesting. Very cool.
Thank you, Jamie. And guys, thank you again. We'll see you tomorrow for some Bible studies and some cool stuff. So until then, don't forget to obey, submit, and comply. Goodbye.